He was just trying to juggle a cranky toddler, a job interview, and a $5 coffee. But when the steaming cup slipped from his hand and splashed across a woman's designer handbag in front of a crowded cafe, he braced himself for a meltdown. Instead, she looked him dead in the eye and smiled. "Don't worry," she said, calmly pulling a silk handkerchief from her coat pocket. "Let's fix 2 lives today, yours and mine." He didn't know it then, but she wasn't just kind. She was one of the richest women in New York. "Let's begin." The toddler was wailing. Eli Parker crouched next to his 3-year-old son, Dylan, outside the Midtown coffee shop, trying to soothe him with a half-soggy granola bar and soft whispers. It wasn't working. Dylan's little face was flushed red from the cold, his mittens damp from snow melt, and his voice growing hoarser with every tear-streaked sob. Eli checked his watch. He had precisely 10 minutes before the interview of his life. A job he desperately needed. He hadn't eaten breakfast. He hadn't slept last night. And when he finally stood up and pulled open the coffee shop door with one hand while balancing Dylan on his hip with the other, his balance gave way. Crash! The lid flew off the coffee cup. Steaming liquid arced through the air and landed squarely on the arm of a woman's creamy, white trench coat. It dribbled down on her crocodile leather handbag that probably cost more than Eli's rent. Gasps fluttered from the nearby tables. Eli froze. His heart raced. The woman, tall, poised, effortlessly elegant with sharp cheekbones and black gloves, slowly turned. Her icy green eyes locked onto his wide, terrified ones. Oh God, I'm so sorry," Eli stammered. "Please, I'll pay for it, I swear. I didn't mean." She raised a hand. Calmly, silently, she pulled a silk handkerchief from her pocket and gently dabbed at the coffee stain. Then she looked at Dylan, who had gone quiet in shock, and smiled softly. "This little guy hungry?" she asked. Eli blinked. "What?" "There's a diner 2 blocks down. Come with me. Both of you. I'm buying breakfast." He hesitated. "Ma'am, I can't. I don't have time. I have this interview," and she cut him off with a glance so calm, so in control, it felt like the world stopped. "You spilled coffee on a billionaire's handbag," she said dryly. "This is me forgiving you. The least you can do is accept a meal." The diner wasn't fancy. It had checkered floors, greasy windows, and the scent of syrup permanently soaked into the furniture. But somehow, sitting across from the mysterious woman in her crisp coat, Eli felt like he'd been transported into another world. She sat with the posture of someone used to being watched, the kind of woman who had staff instead of friends, drivers instead of alarms. And yet, here she was feeding Dylan pieces of pancake off her fork with the gentleness of someone who'd done it 100 times. "You didn't have to do this," Eli said again, pushing the last of his scrambled eggs around the plate, too ashamed to eat in front of her. "You really didn't." "I know," she replied, taking a sip of her tea. "But I wanted to." "Why?" he asked, too broke, too desperate, and too raw to play polite anymore. She looked at him, really looked at him. Her eyes were sharper than before, calculating, maybe even testing him. "Because I see someone who's trying," she said slowly. "You didn't spill that coffee because you were careless. You spilled it because your world is cracking, and you're holding it together with string." Eli blinked, stunned. "You can't afford to miss that interview, can you?" she asked. "No," he admitted, voice tight. "It's the first callback I've had in 6 months. After my wife left, his throat closed up. I've been doing gig work, fixing appliances, Lyft driving at night. It's been rough." She nodded, as if she already knew. "And you brought your son with you?" "My sitter canceled. I didn't have a choice." There was a pause. She reached in her coat pocket and pulled out a pen and a small black business card. She slid it across the table to him. Her name was embossed in silver, Rowan Carlyle. Underneath it, Carlyle Industries. CEO. Eli stared. "Wait, the Carlyle Foundation?" She nodded. "You've heard of us. You're on billboards. Airports. I mean, you're everywhere." She smiled faintly. "And yet you spilled coffee on me." He let out an anxious laugh. "God." Rowan's smile faded a little, turning serious. "Eli, if you want, I'll make a phone call. I know the CEO at Oakbridge Solutions. You said that's where your interview is, right?" His stomach twisted. "No. I mean, yes, that's the place. But I don't want a handout. I want to earn it." Rowan tilted her head slightly, as if reassessing him again. Then she said something that hit him like a train. Then earned something else. Work for me. Eli nearly choked. What? She handed him a napkin. My driver's outside. He'll take Dylan to a sitter I trust. You'll ride with me to my office. We'll talk about a trial position. It's not charity. It's a chance. He stared at her, torn between desperation, confusion, and disbelief. Why me? She leaned in. Her voice was quiet but firm. Because I see a man who hasn't given up yet. And I need someone like that. And just like that, Eli's entire world tilted. The Carlisle building loomed like a cathedral of glass and steel. It was the kind of place Eli had only ever passed by on foot. Never dreamed he'd enter through the front doors in anything but a delivery uniform. But now, Rowan Carlisle herself walked beside him, her heels clicking on the marble floor as receptionists straightened at their desks and security gave discreet nods of recognition. This way, she said, tapping the elevator button with one red-tipped nail. Eli swallowed hard, his hands still trembling from nerves and maybe disbelief. Hours ago, he was just a broke single dad who spilled coffee on a stranger. Now he was inside a billion-dollar empire. The elevator opened into a private penthouse suite. No cubicles, no buzzing printers. Just a massive wall of glass overlooking the city, a sleek mahogany desk, and a woman with the weight of an empire on her shoulders. Sit, Rowan said gently, walking to her desk. She tossed her coat over the back of a chair, sat down, and opened a sleek black folder. Tell me what you're good at. Eli hesitated. Honestly, I fix things. That's what I've been doing since my wife left. Plumbing, wiring, appliances, car engines. Whatever it takes. Rowan raised an eyebrow. What did you do before that? He hesitated. Marketing. Small firm. I was good. But it closed during the pandemic. Never really got back on my feet. She nodded. Good. We need someone who knows struggle. I have a project. Private. Off the books. It's a local housing program for single parents. Government contracts stalled. Contractors pulled out. But I want to finish it. Quietly. Without media. And I need someone who gets it. Eli's eyes widened. You're serious? I don't joke about this, she said, voice low. The world has enough people building skyscrapers. I want to build something that matters. The words sank into him like warmth. For the first time in months, Eli didn't feel like a failure. He felt seen. But things didn't stay warm for long. It was on the third day that Eli saw something strange. A room, always locked, on the upper floor. No name on the door. No visitors. He asked Rowan's assistant once. Don't, she said, barely above a whisper. Some ghosts are better left sleeping. But curiosity chipped away at Eli's resolve, and one evening, after everyone had left and Dylan was asleep in the nursery Rowan had arranged for him downstairs, Eli wandered. The door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open. It wasn't an office. It was a memory. The room was full of paintings, half-finished, hauntingly sad. Canvas after canvas of a young girl with auburn hair. The same girl in every painting. A violin sat in the corner, untouched but dusted. On one of the easels, a sticky note. She should have never been alone that night. Eli backed out as if he'd intruded on a grave. The next morning, Rowan was waiting for him. You opened the door, she said quietly. I didn't mean, he started. I don't care that you did. I care what you think now. He didn't answer at first. Then, carefully, she was her daughter. Rowan's face broke, just slightly. Her name was Ava. She turned to the window. She died in a fire. 4 years ago. House caught flames while I was at a charity gala. Her nanny left to meet a man. Ava was asleep. Eli's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. Rowan nodded slowly. I've donated millions to causes since. Rebuilt schools. Shelters. But nothing fills that hole. Nothing will. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, softly, maybe not. But building something for kids like her, that matters. Rowan turned toward him, and something cracked behind her eyes. Just a little. Good, she said. Then let's build it. Together. The weeks that followed moved like a whirlwind. Eli wasn't just surviving anymore. He was evolving. The abandoned housing site Rowan had mentioned sat on the edge of Queens, boarded up, half-built structures caked in layers of dirt and graffiti, long forgotten by the city and its contractors. But with every passing day, Eli brought life back into the ruins. He coordinated local crews, rallied former union workers, and even started a volunteer roster with single moms and dads who were as desperate for affordable housing as he'd once been for a second chance. And Rowan? She came by every week. No camera crews, no press, just quiet watching, occasional comments, and sometimes warmth. They share morning coffees now. They argued over budgets and laughed over Dylan's obsession with graham crackers. Eli noticed she started wearing simpler clothes, trading heels for boots when visiting the site. She seemed lighter around him, like she was slowly crawling out of the suffocating shell of grief. But just as they were building something together, something real, life decided to crack it wide open. It started with a knock at Eli's apartment one night. He opened the door and froze. There, holding a duffel bag and drenched from the rain, stood his ex-wife. "Lena, I didn't know where else to go," she said, voice trembling. "Please, just let me explain." Dylan ran from the hallway, excited at the familiar voice. "Mommy." Eli's heart plummeted. He hadn't seen Lena in over a year. She had walked out on both of them after draining their savings, chasing a modeling career in Los Angeles with a man twice her age. No calls, no birthday cards, just silence. And now, she stood there looking hollowed out, as if she'd lived 100 lives in 12 months. He let her in, not because he trusted her, because Dylan needed answers. Rowan was the first to notice the change. Eli was distracted at work, absent-minded, guarded. At the site one afternoon, she cornered him behind the supply trailer. "What's wrong?" she asked, arms crossed. "And don't say nothing. I know the look of a man whose house is on fire." Eli sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Lena came back, Dylan's mom. Rowan blinked, slowly. "And she says she wants to try again. Says she's clean now. Got out of a bad relationship. She's staying on the couch." He paused. Dylan's happy. He's smiling again. But me? I feel like I'm standing on thin ice. Rowan didn't reply right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was even. "And what do you want?" Eli looked at her. "I don't know. I want my son to be okay. I want to keep building this with you. But I don't know if I can do both." There was a silence between them. Then Rowan said, very quietly, "Do you still love her?" Eli swallowed hard. "No, but I think a part of me still wants to save her." She gave a bitter smile. "You're a good man, Eli Parker. And good men always want to fix broken things." Her voice cracked then, just a little. But some things stay broken. That night, things exploded. Lena had been snooping. She found the pay stubs from Carlisle Industries, the drawings for the housing project, Rowan's name scribbled on papers, and Eli's phone, which she picked up when it rang, and saw Rowan's name glowing on the screen. "You're sleeping with her, aren't you?" Lena spat when he walked into the living room. "What?" "No," he snapped, grabbing the phone from her hand. She laughed bitterly. "You think you're some saint now, huh? Some charity project she's grooming to be her little working-class trophy." "Don't you dare," Eli growled. "She's done more for me and Dylan in 2 weeks than you did in the last 2 years. Her face twisted. "You think I'm the villain? You think I left because I didn't care? I was drowning too, Eli. I was losing myself. You just got stuck playing hero." Dylan stood in the hallway again, silent, watching. Eli exhaled, his heart breaking. "You don't get to come back and light the house on fire again." Lena's voice dropped. "Then I want custody." His blood ran cold. "You're not serious." She looked him dead in the eye. "Try me." The next day, Eli didn't show up to the construction site. Rowan sat alone in her car, watching the workers without him, waiting for a text that never came. Instead, her assistant brought in a letter. From a lawyer. Notice of custody dispute. Lena Torres versus Eli Parker. The room spun. Rowan gripped the edge of her desk. She picked up her phone. Dialed. "Eli, come to the penthouse. Now." The moment Eli stepped into Rowan's office, she could see it on his face. Exhaustion, betrayal, fear. The storm brewing behind his eyes. "She's trying to take Dylan," he said quietly, standing in the middle of the room like a man who had been punched one too many times. Rowan rose from her chair. "Sit down. I can't. I can't breathe. I can't think. Eli," she said firmly. "Sit down." He did. She took a long breath. "I've seen custody battles. They're never about the child. They're about punishment. Lena's trying to punish you for moving on, for growing without her." He nodded slowly, pressing a trembling hand to his forehead. "I don't have money for lawyers. She has her mother's backing. Her stepdad's a judge in Jersey. I don't have a chance. Rowan didn't blink. You do now. He looked up. What? She stepped around the desk and sat beside him. I'm putting my lawyers on your case. The best custody team in Manhattan. Rowan, I can't ask you to do that. You didn't. I'm offering. You're not alone anymore. She leaned forward. But there's one thing you need to do. Name it. Fight. Fight like hell for your son. The courtroom was brutal. Lena wore pearls and crocodile tears. Her lawyer painted Eli as unstable, a single dad bouncing from gig to gig, dragging his son across construction sites, exposing him to dangerous labor conditions and influential people with unclear motives. They even used Rowan's name, suggested Eli was being used by a billionaire woman with her own agenda. Rowan sat in the back of the courtroom, stone-faced, watching everything. Eli took the stand, and for the first time, he didn't hold back. I may not be perfect, he said, his voice shaking but loud. I've struggled. I've failed. But I've never once walked away from my son. I've been there at 2 a.m. with fever meds. I've taught him how to tie his shoes. I held him every night when he cried for his mother, and I never badmouthed her, because I wanted him to keep believing she might come back. He looked directly at Lena. But now you're back to take him away? After everything? No. I'm done letting people decide what my son needs without asking him. Gasps fluttered in the courtroom. And then, from the back, Rowan stood up. Your Honor, she said calmly. May I speak? The judge raised a brow. Miss Carlyle, you are not a witness. I'm not. I'm a benefactor of a housing project Mr. Parker is leading, and also of several children's initiatives throughout the state. I've worked with countless single parents, but I've rarely seen one fight as hard and as selflessly as this man. She stepped forward, voice steady. I am prepared to place a sworn affidavit that I've personally supervised Mr. Parker's role with my company, that his son is regularly cared for in a professional nursery, that he is stable, employed, and supported. And if this court questions my motives, I'm prepared to submit my full personal communications to prove there's nothing improper happening here. Lena's lawyer sputtered. The judge silenced him with a wave. Thank you, Miss Carlyle. Your statement will be entered into the record. Eli turned toward Rowan. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, unspoken but powerful. Trust. It took 3 agonizing days. But when the decision came, the judge ruled in Eli's favor. Sole custody. Lena stormed out of the courtroom, not saying a word, not even to Dylan. Eli broke down in the hallway, clutching his son to his chest. Rowan stood quietly nearby, giving him space. But then, he walked up to her and did something he hadn't done before. He pulled her into a hug. Thank you, he whispered, his voice cracking. You didn't just save me. You gave me back the right to be proud of the man I've become. Rowan's arms wrapped around him, slowly, like a woman still learning how to feel safe again. You did that yourself, she said quietly. I just reminded you what you were worth. 1 year later, the housing site had transformed into a neighborhood. Rosa modest, warm homes, painted fences, a community garden, a playground named Ava's Haven, a tribute Rowan had quietly approved without ceremony. Eli now headed the full initiative under the Carlyle Foundation. And Rowan? She was still CEO, but her name was no longer just a brand. It was whispered with reverence across the city for what she'd built, not in skyscrapers, but in second chances. That spring morning, Dylan ran ahead of them into the garden, giggling as the wind carried dandelions across the grass. Rowan stood beside Eli, coffee in one hand, a rare smile on her lips. You ever think, Eli asked, watching his son, that if I hadn't spilled that coffee? I think, Rowan said, the universe sometimes pushes 2 people into chaos so they can find peace together. He turned to her. And what now? She looked at him, then reached out and took his hand. Now we build, she said. For real.